The cafe was unusually crowded that chilly Saturday morning. The little bell above the door kept jingling as people filed in, shaking the frost off their coats, stamping their boots, eager for a warm cup of coffee and the comfort of fresh pastries. It smelled of roasted beans, cinnamon, and rain-damp jackets. In the corner by the wide window sat Emily, hunched over her notebook. She had been coming to this cafe almost every morning since moving into town 3 months ago. The place had become her quiet retreat. A spot where she could breathe, write, and feel, for just a while, like she wasn't completely invisible in a world that rarely noticed her. Emily wasn't used to drawing attention. She was the type who spoke softly, apologized too much, and slipped into the background. But sometimes, her soft demeanor became an unfortunate invitation to those who thought they could push her around. That morning, it started with a man in a rumpled gray coat. He had been pacing near the counter, muttering angrily to himself when his coffee order took too long. Then his eyes fell on Emily, sitting alone, and something in his expression shifted. He strode over, his voice harsh. You're sitting at my table." Emily blinked, confused. The cafe had no reserved tables. She glanced around, plenty of empty spots. She offered a polite smile. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. There are some free ones just." "I said it's mine." His voice rose, sharp enough to turn heads. "Get up." The barista hesitated behind the counter, uncertain, but no one moved. Emily felt her throat tighten. She closed her notebook, murmured, "All right," and began to gather her things. But before she could stand, the man's hand shot out and grabbed her arm. "You're not listening fast enough." He yanked. The scrape of chair legs screeched against the tile floor as Emily stumbled, nearly losing her balance. Gasps rippled across the cafe. She tried to pull free, her voice trembling. "Please. Let go." And then, from across the room, a deep voice cut through the chaos. "Touch my wife again and you'll regret it." The cafe fell into stunned silence. Heads swiveled toward the speaker. A tall man had risen from a table near the counter. His broad shoulders filled his flannel shirt, his hands balled into fists at his sides. Next to him, a little girl with curly brown hair stared wide-eyed, clutching a half-eaten muffin. The man strode forward, calm but unmistakably dangerous. His eyes locked on the stranger's hand gripping Emily's arm. The aggressor faltered. "She's my wife." The single dad's voice was steady, cold steel under warmth. "And if you don't let her go this second, you're going to regret ever walking through that door." The grip loosened instantly. Emily staggered back, clutching her notebook to her chest. Her heart thundered. She had never seen this man before in her life. But in that moment, he stepped closer, placing himself between her and the aggressor like a shield. "You need to leave," he said to the man in the gray coat. His tone brooked no argument. The stranger muttered something under his breath, his bluster deflating under the weight of so many watching eyes. He shoved his hands in his pockets and stormed out, the bell above the door jingling sharply in his wake. For a long moment, silence lingered. Then the little girl piped up innocently, "Daddy, is she really our mommy now?" The cafe erupted in relieved laughter. The tension cracked, melting away like ice in the sun. Emily flushed crimson. The man turned to her, softer now, his expression apologetic. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. He exhaled. "You looked like you needed help." Emily found her voice, shaky but grateful. Thank you. I didn't know what to do." The barista finally rushed over, offering Emily a free drink, whispering apologies for not acting sooner. But Emily's eyes stayed on the stranger, the tall man and his daughter. He extended his hand. "I'm Jack." She hesitated, then placed her hand in his, still trembling. "Emily." "Emily," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. His grip was firm, reassuring. "This is Sophie." The little girl grinned, muffin crumbs dotting her cheeks. "Hi, Mommy." Emily blinked, startled, then burst into a laugh she hadn't expected. It tumbled out of her, unguarded, light. Jack looked sheepish. "Sorry. She's got an imagination. Since her mom passed, she's always pretending someone new might, you know." Emily's chest tightened. She knelt to meet Sophie's eyes. "Hi, Sophie. That's a beautiful name." Sophie's face lit up. "Do you like muffins?" Emily smiled. "Very much." That was how it started. Over the next hour, Emily found herself at Jack's table. He insisted she sit with them until she felt safe enough to leave. The warmth of their company was an anchor after the storm. Jack spoke little about himself, only that he worked construction jobs around town and raised Sophie alone. But there was something in his voice when he spoke to his daughter, gentle, steady, endlessly patient, that made Emily's guarded heart ache in a way she hadn't felt in years. She told him she was new to town, trying to build a fresh start after a string of disappointments she didn't dare elaborate on. He didn't press. He simply listened, nodding, like her words mattered. When Sophie begged Emily to share her muffin, Emily found herself breaking off a piece, laughing when the girl insisted she take the bigger half. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt seen. A week later, she was back at the cafe, this time by choice, scanning the room almost instinctively. When she spotted Jack and Sophie at their usual table, she hesitated only a moment before walking over. Sophie squealed. "Emily," she scrambled from her chair and hugged Emily's legs like they'd known each other forever. Jack looked up, surprised but clearly pleased. "Back at our little corner of the world, huh?" She smiled shyly. "Maybe I like the company." And just like that, a rhythm began. Morning coffees turned into shared breakfasts. Shared breakfasts turned into Saturday outings. Emily joining them at the park. Sophie dragging her onto the swings. Jack watching from the bench with a soft smile that said more than words ever could. Emily found herself laughing more, writing more, breathing more. The shadows that had followed her seemed to lift every time Sophie tugged her hand or Jack met her eyes with that quiet steadiness. But it wasn't perfect. There were moments Emily questioned it all. She wasn't anyone's mom. She wasn't sure she was even strong enough to belong in someone's life again. She carried scars, invisible but heavy, from people who had dismissed her, controlled her, made her feel small. One rainy afternoon, as they ducked into the cafe dripping wet, Sophie clung to Emily's hand and declared loudly to the barista, "This is my new mommy." The words struck Emily's chest like a bell. Jack quickly intervened. "Sophie," his voice held both affection and warning. But Emily caught the look in the barista's eyes, pity, amusement, curiosity, and suddenly, every insecurity rushed back. She gently slipped her hand from Sophie's, muttered an excuse, and fled into the rain. Jack caught up with her half a block away. "Emily, wait," his voice carried urgency. He grabbed her umbrella before the wind could rip it away, holding it over both of them. Rain poured around them, soaking their shoes. She shook her head, tears mixing with raindrops. "I can't do this. I'm not. She deserves someone stronger. Someone whole. I'm just." Her voice cracked. "I'm just broken pieces." Jack's jaw tightened, his eyes fierce, not with anger but with something deeper. "Emily. Do you know what Sophie asked me after her mom died? She asked if I could put the pieces back together. And I told her sometimes the broken pieces make the strongest mosaic." Emily stared at him, stunned. "You don't have to be perfect," he said softly. "You just have to be here." That's all she wants. That's all I want. Something inside her shifted then, like a door opening. Weeks bled into months. The cafe was no longer just Emily's refuge. It was theirs. Strangers began to recognize the three of them together, the single dad, the little girl, and the quiet woman who always had a notebook in her bag. And one day, when Sophie fell asleep with her head in Emily's lap at the park, Jack whispered, almost to himself, "Touch my wife again and you'll regret it." Emily blinked. "What?" He smiled sheepishly. "That's what I said that first day. But what I meant was, I couldn't stand seeing someone treat you like you didn't matter. Because you do, Emily. More than you know." Her heart swelled, fuller than she thought it could hold. And though neither of them said the words outright that day, they didn't need to. Because sometimes, family begins not with blood, but with a choice. Spoken in a cafe, sealed in laughter, and carried forward in kindness.